place in my heart where I find the truth. I find me in you, a truth beyond what you may see now. But when we are one, we bring more good about. No matter who or what you call yourself or where you come from, yeah. There is a place in this world with open arms right now. Welcome to love, welcome to peace, welcome to our community. Be who you are, let your light shine. We're so much more when we unite. You are welcome here. You are welcome here. I see with new eyes, allow and unfold, embrace and let go, trust the flow. There's a freedom in love when you follow your heart. Together we are stronger than we could ever be apart. No matter who or what you call yourself or where you come from, yeah. There is a place in this world with open arms right now. Welcome to love, welcome to peace, welcome to our community. Be who you are, let your light shine. We're so much more when we unite. You are welcome here. You are welcome here. Breathe in and out. Slowly feel all that's around you. All that you feel, all that you know. Let it go. Welcome to love, welcome to peace, welcome to our community. Be who you are, let your light shine. We're so much more when we unite. Yeah, when we unite. Oh, we unite. Yeah, yeah, when we unite. Yeah, yeah, yeah. You are welcome here. Love is welcome here. Peace is welcome here. You are welcome here.
Good afternoon and welcome everyone to Center for Spiritual Living Ocala. I am Reverend Cindy Grimes. I am the spiritual director of the Center for Spiritual Living, and I am so glad that you're spending some time with us this afternoon. Welcome, welcome. You are welcome here. Everyone is welcome here. And so I want to tell you a little bit about who we are and our values, so that you can look at your values and look at ours and see if we are a good match. So number one at the top of our list is spiritual growth and practice. That is why we exist at the Center for Spiritual Living and why we do what we do, is so that we can all learn and grow together. And our next value is love. We believe that Love is the essence of who we are as spiritual beings having this human experience. And so it is also at the top of our list. We value appreciation because we know that what we appreciate, what we give gratitude for, grows in our awareness and in our perceptions. And we value community. We value that coming together of like minds and like hearts. We value freedom. That's freedom to think and to express who we came here to be. We value creativity. We believe that that is how we are like our creator. Our creator is creative and we are made in the image and likeness of that creativity. And so here we are. And we value health and wholeness. That is health on every level. We're talking spiritual, financial, emotional, mental. We just value health and well-being. We value generosity, that is giving, and we value financial well-being. And our mission and vision at Center for Spiritual Living Ocala, first of all, our vision is that we are a model center for spiritual living as evidenced by the transformational impact we have on our own spiritual community, on the larger Centers for Spiritual Living organization, and the community at large. And so we are, for those of you who may be new, one of just many Centers for Spiritual Living that are located all over the world. There's over 400 organizations that are under this umbrella of Centers for Spiritual Living, and we are just one of them located in Ocala, Florida. And our mission is to empower individuals to find, to awaken to that power and presence that lies within and all around them so they may live their best lives. And that is what we are here to do. We know that we are doing our work and our mission. If your life is transformed and you're living what you feel like is the best life that you can live, I feel like I'm living my best life, and everyone that is affiliated with our community. And so welcome. That's all of the introductory stuff, who we are, what we are about. And we are this year studying the work of a woman named Valerie Kaur, who has written a book called See No Stranger, a memoir and manifesto of revolutionary love. And the work that evolved out of that book, she calls the Revolutionary Love Project. And so every month we've been diving into a different aspect of revolutionary love. For the first quarter or the first third of the year, I suppose we were talking about loving others and what that means and looks like. Then we spent 3 months, 4 months maybe, I don't know, talking about how we love those that we perceive as opponents, right? We don't call them enemies, we call them opponents, because really that could be anybody. That could be a child, it could be a spouse, it could be, you know, someone that works for us or that we work for that in the moment is feeling like someone we are opposed to or heads butting. So we talked about that. And now the compass is turned for this last portion of the program to loving ourselves. And what does that look like? So this month in particular, we're talking about breathing, the breath, the importance of love, of breathing to self-love. And so I invited some friends to speak about that. Today I have one friend, one very wonderful friend that you have met if you watch CSL Ocala and if you follow us, and that is Reverend Mary Ellen Cassie, who we're going to invite into the stream now. Reverend Mary Ellen. Hi, Mary Ellen.
Hi there.
Hello, hello, my dear. You look fabulous.
Oh, thank you. It's so good to be here, to be back with you.
Yes, and you join us from Ontario?
Hamilton, Ontario. Yes.
Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. So we're about almost as far apart as we can be, right? North to south.
I guess I'm quite north of you.
Quite north, quite north. We're quite south. So anyway, just wonderful to have you here. And you know, I wondered, I didn't ask you this before, but would you mind praying us in? I love for our community to hear folks, different people pray in. So if you would do that, it would be fabulous.
It's my pleasure. So I know our topic is about breath, so I'm going to invite everyone that is here present with us and for those that are not, but to hold them in our heart and to take a conscious breath and just feel that within. And I invite you to take another one with great intention for yourself. Expand your lungs. Feel that life traveling through our beingness, through ourselves, awakening us into our fullness and all the possibilities that we are. And I know that spirit is all both invisible and visible, and there's this one presence and one mind and one power that is all. That is all in each and every one of us. It is this perfect life, this perfect love. When we embrace this, it is perfect substance. So knowing that all life is an individualized expression of spirit, each and every one of us is with this perfect life now. And I know that everything that needs to be said or spoken about or listened to or heard, it is now done. And so I release these words out into the universe, knowing that they land and are witnessed and are heard by many. And I ask you to join me in so doing in this release process, to say amen, and so it is.
Amen. And so it is. Thank you, my lovely friends.
Thank you.
Yes, we're ready. We're ready.
I am now. Thank you. Take that breath. Yep.
Wonderful, wonderful. So, what's that?
It's nice to see you. I'm glad you're back from the big sky and all that stuff that you enjoyed and shared with the world.
I'm glad to be back. It was a wonderful experience. It was a much different trip than others have been for me, because it was a working retreat. Since I was presenting, it was a little bit different, and some other things I think we may talk about during this broadcast, talking about breath. But I wanted people to get a sense of how you use breathing. And well, even before that, before we talk about that, just by way of introduction, I know you have a very diverse background. You've done work in mediation with labor groups. You have a background in Buddhism. You're also a religious science minister. And I know that this breathing, mindfulness, the breath has been an integral part of your practice. And also knowing a lot of the drama and trauma and things that you have been through, how important has the breath been for you in helping you move out of those things? And I haven't shared what those things are. You have talked about them in other broadcasts, but maybe for people who've not experienced you before, tell them a little bit about where you come from and how the breath has been important to you.
Well, that's a really interesting, I thank you for the introduction, and it only came upon me after preparing for this afternoon, that I had a memory that I haven't had in many years, but talking about the breath, I mean, it is our life. It's what keeps us alive. And one of the moments when you read this chapter, and it is wrenching, gut wrenching, and heart wrenching, and it reminded me of when I didn't know I had a breath. I didn't even know I was breathing, and that's why it comes to me. And your question is perfect, Cindy. Is that when I received a call I received a call, and I was at my workplace in my lovely office, and I received a call that my son was arrested. And then I learned of the charge, etc. And it was no secret. I spoke about this when we did Rage, and it was about a charge of murder. And that's all I knew about it. I didn't know any circumstances. And then I remember what that afternoon was like, because the call came about 3:30 in the afternoon, and I had to step outside my office because it wasn't really someone speaking to me. It was a message on my phone from my sister. And I got up from my desk immediately and went out of my office, and I asked my secretary to come in to my office, sort of to witness what I'm hearing, if I'm hearing these words correctly. And so she did that for me. And then I began to lose the control over my body, my heat. I went into shock. I had never experienced shock before. So while I was practicing breath work today earlier and that, but this came up and said, oh, I remember when I didn't remember I was breathing. I didn't even have feelings. I was numb. I was like an iceberg. And I decided to drive to my home because I had plans that night that I could not follow through. But I know that I probably shouldn't have driven, but you know what? All I had was to get myself to a safe place, which I do is my home. And so I called my therapist and asked if there was any openings. I had an emergency. I was the emergency. And as Spirit gifts me these things, she just had someone cancel an appointment. So when I got home, I had an appointment at 6 o'clock that night. It took me, I probably didn't get home till 4:30 or 5, so I didn't have much time to think about anything except getting to my therapist. And a friend of mine was coming in because we had plans to go do something else. And so it was that night that I experienced shock, what that feels like to a human body. My mind was elsewhere, but I know I paid attention because I wasn't sure what was happening in all of that. But it was, once I arrived at my therapist, I know that I was being breathed all this time. I've never used those words before, but that was what was keeping me alert, that I was still being breathed, and that I haven't lost all my faculties. I just lost all the warmth, all that, what we call in homeopathy, the vital force. It was like draining out of me, my energy, the heat, the thermal heat that's in our body. Those things that are automatically controlled. I noticed I was losing. And so I went to my session and I came out of that, and that was fine. And then I had to, drive to Windsor. But something happened after that session is that I regained who I was and then started to be in that moment. And the only thing I know what to do in that moment is to breathe and to meditate. And so that's how I came back to my ordinary breath again. And it was being with it, being with the shock, being with the news, even with what was happening to myself. I can only talk about, I've never been asked this before, so here I am talking about something that happened 22 years ago in my life, come December. And it's like, wow, those feelings, our body keeps this memory. It's like we are incredible beings. And when I think of this now, it's like, oh my God, I was still able to talk. I was able to feel for my son's father, because there were a lot of people involved in this. And I thought, my God, I just have one son and you have 3 sons involved in this. I didn't even think of taking care of myself. I was feeling compassion for my ex-husband. So it was like, it just keeps showing me who I am in anything, that my compassion will continue to give. And I've learned now to transfer some of that compassion and love to myself, and I do that with great intention with my breathing. That's what has changed now today. 22 years later, I breathe with great intention and attention to myself. I breathe, I used to just breathe consciously, ground myself, but now I breathe and hold my breath. I'm up to the count of 8. I can go to 10, but then it's like a struggle, so I don't like struggles. I'll just go take a deep breath in and hold that and know that it's filling me up, building my immune system, doing a whole bunch of things that it just does itself. I don't have to do it. And then when I breathe it in, I also take in the practice of breathing in peace with one breath, and then it's a practice of Tonglen. Then I breathe out to the world, peace to the world. So I may be benefiting from taking in the oxygen, and then when I'm breathing this out, I'm breathing my intention and attention out to the world globally, that there be peace on earth. And I practice being this peace that I am now as I can model that. So it has taken on a whole different meaning from 22 years ago and not really paying attention to where I'm at today. When you asked that question, I thought, I breathe with great intention. Every morning I give thanks stepping out of bed. Say thank you. I have another day. What shall we do? And then I begin my spiritual practice of being grateful and meditating and reading and that.
Yeah.
But it's
before you go into your practice, Mary Ellen, I want to just bring some attention to some of the things you said. There was so much juicy stuff in there. I want to expand on some of that. And this inquiry is deepening my understanding, my appreciation so much for the breath, for something that is so simple that, like you said, we don't even think about it. Right. And I'm thinking as you were sharing your story about those moments that we say take our breath away. Yes. And sometimes those are moments of just extreme beauty and awe and amazing things. But sometimes it's the moment you get the bad news. It's the moment the accident happens. It's the moment, something happens that literally just, you can't even breathe.
Exactly.
You can't breathe, and you have to bring yourself back. And even when we can't do it consciously, our body knows to do that for us. Mm-hmm. Right? That's the gift. Like you said, we're not even consciously breathing. I am being breathed because I don't know how to do anything right now. Right? That power, that presence that's bigger than us is doing the breathing and guiding me and taking care of me as I can't function or deal with the situation at hand. Mm-hmm. And how amazing that is, I was thinking about, I don't know if you saw when we were at Big Sky, the broadcast with Ali Benjamin. I don't remember if she shared this story. There were so many things that I heard that we talked about, but Ali had a horrific experience of finding her son after he committed suicide. A young man also, just I think in his 20s. And it was one of those things, right, that kick to the gut that just takes the breath away. And she said, but in that moment, there was some kind of divine perfection, as horrific as it was for her to go through that, to realize she brought this young man into the world, and she was the one that found him as he left. And what a profound gift that was for her, even in the pain of that experience. And that that's just one person. There's several examples like that of people who are able to come out of the depths of despair and find that transcendence, then maybe it happens when you finally taking that conscious breath. I don't know. What do you relate to that?
I can, because when you said that you don't even know what we're doing sometimes, you know, as I'm sitting here now thinking, I don't even know how I drove that car home. I mean, you know, it was a half an hour drive, and I'm now maybe I just went blank, but I know that I drove myself home because I needed to have my vehicle, but I don't remember that. And I think I was just concentrating on, I knew that I was still alive. I just didn't know what all of this other stuff was going on. It was a new experience for me. I've been, you know, I used to, well, one of the things that happened, I can tell you this, that how my heart opened. I mean, it isn't, I was just broken right open when I got to Windsor and drove past the house and saw the yellow tape and forensic people outside. I got another kick in the gut saying, oh my God, this isn't fake news, this is real news, this is the real McCoy here. And so I went to my sister's and I just broke. I fell to the ground when I learned that it was the truth, that this is really happening in my family. And I had voices that came out of my being that I've never heard before, but I just now assume that it's all the hurt and anything I have ever stuffed down below has now come up and the iceberg is in full view. There's no bottom to this now. I'm here with it. And I remember when I was 16, I put every brick around my heart so I would never be hurt ever again in my life. And one by one, I just felt my heart cracking open. And it changed my life. And then I think I became very intentional about everything I do, about being aware and deepening my own practice of meditation and mindfulness. It became a new opening for me where I could see now, because the crack in my heart has opened up and that light is now going to shine, and it has never stopped shining since. But you're right, when you are in that place, and I always just trust nothing will happen to me. And even in all of this, because it was a long journey from that phone call to where things, you know, my son went off and things like that. But for myself, that was a leap I wasn't sure I was going to ever have to take, ever. I worked in the courts for 14 years, and I was in trials and all of that, and it was always someone else's person or etc. And this is a courtroom. The courtroom where it took place, I used to sit in with judges myself. This was my old workplace. I now lived in Toronto, but I had to come back to Windsor. I showed up for my son at every call that there was to be at for these proceedings. And so other things happened to my body, but I remember that I kept on breathing and kept on moving forward to be, you know, I know we use different words in reading Valerie's book because I love the word being an accomplice now. There's no competition. I'm not in competition with anyone for any reason, and you can tell me anything. It's okay. I can be with quite a bit these days.
Yeah.
And so I give that credit to my perhaps 10 years of hospice and listening and being of service and breathing each time. And being a chaplain with people on palliative care in palliative care or being visiting people on the mental health. I want to call it the mental health wing. I know that isn't what they call it, but that's my words for it. And being asked to come and visit people. And it's always about taking, for myself, it's another practice of taking a breath before I go in, because if I was going to visit somebody, in the palliative care wing, I also recognize and know that that is their last living place that they are in when I'm there. And so I practice being a guest in someone's home. So I take a breath before I go in and then knock on the door and announce myself. It has changed I have a lot of these things that just keep me focused at what door am I at today? What door am I entering into today? Am I enriching someone's life? Those are the most grace-filled times of my life. Worth more than my paychecks. Is that
Most of us in ministry are doing it for the paycheck, are we?
No, I'm afraid not. It's not, but it's about the gift of being and honoring about being with another human being who may have similar experiences or feelings. And this is when I think I don't even think anymore about it. I can't know anyone unless we're in a conversation like this, sharing deeply or caring about life itself or what is going on in the world even. And I have to stop and breathe. I think when I spoke and I was probably a little louder than I usually am, or had more feelings and passion over the things that happened here in my own country I wasn't aware of about the Indigenous people. I wasn't sure I was breathing some of that time when I was talking because I was so angry. And I can't have both happening. I like to be focused and 100% with somebody when I'm with them doing the work I do. And so I'm always grateful. One of my experiences, Cindy, when this trial was over with my son, I had to come back home. I came home on weekends, but I stayed at my brother's for a month. And then when I went back, I had to go back for the sentencing. And of course, that's like the last call. And I don't drink, but I just think it's the last call. It's the last hurrah that's happening in this case. And, I was devastated and left empty. And I remember coming back to Toronto, and this woman from the church that I was attending, called me up and asked if there was anything I could do. I said, "Oh, sure, you could come over and visit and sit with me." She sat and held my hand all afternoon, didn't speak a word. I call her an angel. I still call her, it's the only angel I know in person. I call her that because she has no idea what a gift that was. And allow me to just be with a roller coaster feelings or tears or shakes or whatever. But I live alone, so I came home to an empty house. And then when she came and just held my hand, I don't think she gets to really feel how deep that can be to someone's healing, the beginning of my healing.
Yeah.
And that is another moment in time that we as a human being get to do this for others.
Yeah.
It's the presence, being in the presence.
So true. So true. That's what I'm learning. What I have learned, I feel like my biggest takeaway from Valerie Kaur's work is that we can be agents, facilitators of this revolutionary love. And so much of that is just creating the space,
Yes.
just the space of trust, that space where there's boundaries, where you know there is safety for people to show up and be able to share whatever it is, their grief, their anger, their joy. And we're going to talk about that toward the end of this program. That's the last, in December, we'll be talking about joy and just how precious that is, that you almost don't want to share it with everybody because people will throw a wet blanket on it. They'll dampen it.
Exactly.
So so as people who love people, as people in this movement working to create a world that works for all, I think that so much of our work is just creating the space for people to show up as they are. And that, for me, is unconditional love, revolutionary love. Not going to
Yeah.
change you, not going to try to change you or make anything different than what it is, but to be present and to be the eyes and ears and hands and feet and love of God itself.
Mm-hmm. And that is, it was hard for me to hear once, before I was told, like, oh, you're a gift in the world. I know I use those words myself now, but I really believe the gift that we are in the world in every moment. If we're sitting with someone, if we're speaking to someone, I've now reduced it. Every conversation is now a new relationship in my life. I find myself speaking to strangers I've never met. And yet I am filled with love when I leave their presence, and vice versa. It's something, it's a new phenomenon for me to pay attention to. And I may have used those words and I've heard them for myself, and I just thought, oh yeah, I don't know if that's true for me, right? It's that.
Yeah.
Oh,
And something so interesting, Mary Ellen, while you're talking and you're sharing your story, I can feel myself, the tension of it,
yeah.
right? Like feeling the pain, feeling the sorrow of it, the sadness. And as I'm sitting listening, I take a deep breath and just let it be, right? And then I feel myself tensing up, take another deep breath. And I'm doing it. And I probably do it all the time, to be able to take in what the story is, right? And not realize the effect that the breath is having, to bring me down, to help me stay centered, and to help me be present with the conversation that's happening and staying there, right?
And for me, Cindy, just after your last comment about talking about joy, I had a feeling of how joyful I am. I mean, I've lived this and I have survived this, but I have a life of freedom now, and I am thriving. It is, I call it a miracle. You know, it's just the divine essence working in and through and as me, and I have really accepted and incorporated that. That is my truth, my truth.
Yeah.
And so I joined Revolutionary Love in January. Made a commitment and wrote out my contract, and I remember it is that I want to be this welcoming presence of peace and love in the world. We have that saying, but people are waiting for peace to happen out there, and I only know the peace that can happen within me now. And it was so foreign for me to even feel joy as you brought that up. I thought, oh God, I'm so joyful. I'm alive. I'm okay. And that these things come, and I just want to say thank you. Thank you for this divine essence that lives and breathes me in order for me to be with other people. For me to have the stamina to be with other people. I've been, I do funerals and things like that. I've been with people who died. I've given the last rites. No, I'm not a Catholic priest. I don't know when that might happen. Maybe not in my lifetime. but I had permission from someone that I used to go and be a chaplain at a Jewish hospital, and so that's why I practiced Jewish New Year's, etc. And Yom Kippur just happened for me, and it's just a practice for me about being. And when I think about some of the things that have changed that are important to me or memorable for me, the Day of Atonement, the Day of At-One-ment, I try to practice this every day. I don't need one day a year. I need to practice being as open and as for loving, because I can, to do forgiveness, you have to reach in and resurrect all that love that we can. For ourselves first. It's like that oxygen mask. Put it on first. Put that love on you first. And part of that is my breathing process now.
Yes.
To center, to clarify, to focus, to show up,
Yeah. Thank you so much. It's about time for us to start to wrap up. So I guess, I don't know, what would you like to say in closing? Maybe your practice, because I cut you off there. We didn't get back to it, but what is your practice? And is it something that, maybe other people can do, or what do you suggest?
Well, I practice breathing as soon as I get out of bed. I take my breath in. I commune with spirit. I may throw out my intention of the day. And I do this all sitting on the side of my bed at that moment, because I'm just saying thank you. Thank you. I start off with commune, call in the presence, and I speak my words, my gratefulness, and set an intention where I can begin my day. If it flows that way, that's fine, but the intention is to be peace and love in anything that pops up in my world. That isn't always easy. Sometimes I get thrown back and I have to sit back and say, oh, just a minute here. Because I've been living in what I call the great pause. So the great pause was, I changed my language for what's going on out in the world. But for me, I'm in the great pause. And what can I do in that great pause but to find more to do, more to be. I've opened up my heart. I keep expanding my heart, and I just, I think that's what's happening, is that I was broken open 22 years ago, but I keep now expanding, because there's so much more love that I just kept inside. And now you got to be out there showering like a rainfall on the land, on the people, when I hear things. Do you mind if I give you another word, perhaps, or something like that? I'll make a suggestion. I don't use the word toolbox anymore. I have fun. I call my work at my Sacred Heart playground. I have a toy box. Let's go into the toys and pull out something that I can use. I've had lots of struggles, lots of things. It's time for me to have fun with all the tools the divine provided right here and now. So I try to use them and take them with me wherever I am.
And
knowing I don't know the end.
Yeah.
I don't know the end.
Well, I just thank you, Mary Ellen. I thank you for sharing your story. It really is inspiring. And that, people only heard the tip of the iceberg.
That's all they.
I know, this is we could talk for hours of some of the experiences you've had, and the dramas and things that you have endured and come out on the other side of it. And so I commend you for that, and I thank you for sharing and for being that light out in the world, that willingness to create a space of unconditional love for people to show up and move through their stuff. So I thank you.
Well, I thank you for having me, and I appreciate everybody online or listening to us, or whenever they do, if they listen to the talks. It's a great world, great place to be, and I
Well, I
thank you.
appreciate you, honey. And so we're going to be meeting on Zoom afterward. If you're available to join us, for anyone
Sure,
who is
I'll do that.
on the broadcast, to join us afterward and continue this
Sure.
conversation. And so thank you again. Love you. Mwah.
I love you too.
And we'll see you on Zoom. We'll see
Thank
you on
you.
Zoom. Thank you.
Bye.
Another great conversation. I'm not sure I went through any of the questions I thought I was going to ask today, but sometimes you just have to lean into it and see what Spirit wants, or maybe somebody on the Zoom call today, or somebody who's going to watch later, really needed to hear that message and to understand the depth, the profound nature of something that is so simple, that is with us all the time, and that is our breath. How we can use this thing that is with us all the time to bring us back from anxiety, to bring us back from anger, and to have us be centered in the present moment, where we can access peace and joy and calm and wisdom and the answers that we may need in the moment. So wow, that's my takeaway, is just keep taking the time to breathe. And when you feel yourself constricting and stop breathing, that's the moment to become conscious and present and breathe into whatever it is that is in front of you, whatever is happening in that moment. And so I take another deep breath as we go into the next part of our presentation today, and that is sharing our gifts and tithes. And I want to say a special thank you to, I forget what we're calling ourselves, but a group of folks from our center. They're all women, tribal women. We get together and laugh and have fun, but also work and vision and do things on behalf of CSL Ocala. And so several of us were at the center yesterday and worked on the business office and releasing clutter and some things that I think have been weighing us down physically and energetically. And so it was wonderful to create that clearing. And so feeling very open and feeling very joyous about this, and like we're at the beginning of a clean slate. So thank you for everyone that was there. And so this time, thank you for the ladies that showed up yesterday to share their talents and their time. And so I'm going to put this out to the rest of you, those who are watching, that to share your gifts, your time, your talent, and your treasure. And Center for Spiritual Living Ocala can certainly accept some of those gifts. If you choose to give to us financially, we greatly, greatly appreciate it. And so I ask you to make this affirmation your own as I say it. It is the nature of life to give of itself, as it is the tree's nature to bear fruit and the flower's nature to bloom. It is my nature to share the gifts of my time, talent, and treasure. I participate in the divine flow of life, giving generously and receiving abundantly. I am blessed and I am a blessing. And for that, I am so very, very grateful. And so I invite you to look at the affirmation on the screen. There is a banner going across the bottom. There's a couple of ways that you can give to CSL Ocala. You can go to our website at cslocala.org/donate, or you can text to tithe. And what that means is you take that number going across the bottom of the screen and text from your smartphone, and it will prompt you with a couple of ways to get set up. Once you've done it once, it's super easy, and what you do is put in the amount of money you'd like to send CSL Ocala, and it'll go right from your account to ours. It's super easy and really fun, I think. I love to give money. So the, it disappeared. The number is 352-320-5110. And so that's about sharing our gifts and tithes. And let's see what else is going on as far as announcements go. We are still not meeting in person. You know, we were for a little bit and then we had to stop because of the COVID spike. And not knowing what that's going to do coming up, we will not be meeting in October in person, but possibly November, December. We're just going to kind of see where it goes. I don't have a definitive answer for you yet, but we are readying the center and just visioning and working toward that time when we can all meet together in person again. And of course, we will continue to have this online forum for those who can't be with us in person. And so I think that brings us to our closing prayer, which comes to us from James Dillett Freeman and our sister organization at Unity, and it is the prayer for protection. And I just invite you again to make this your own. If you want to hold your hand over your heart, just think about this. The light of God surrounds us. The love of God enfolds us. The power of God protects us. And the presence of God watches over us. Wherever we are, God is, and all is well. And so I just pray and affirm as you go into whatever is before you this week, that you take the time to breathe, especially in those moments where you may feel like something took your breath away. Just remember, come back to the breath. Just breathe and know that you have every resource you need to get through whatever is in front of you. Allow yourself to feel it all, and especially your peace and your joy. Have a fabulous week, and I look forward to seeing you next week. And join us on Zoom if you can. We'd love to have you. We have great conversations. So have a wonderful week. Love and blessings to all. Take care.